So, hello everyone, and welcome to the second edition of NTalks, our international webinar series, part of the Nexus Academy program. Today's session will address a topic that is absolutely critical for the future of our ports, the innovation culture and port workforce development. For those is joining the NTalks for the first time, this is a series where we bring together thought leaders, experts, and professionals to explore the key drivers of the transformation in the port ecosystem. Topics such digitalization, green transition, and as well we see today the importance of the people and culture in driving innovation all contributes to a comprehensive understanding of how innovation can drive operational organization and strategic transformation across all the port ecosystem. It's my great pleasure to introduce today's speakers, Iliriana Kaçaniku. I believe I pronounced well. Iliriana is a founder of the Open Solvent Studio, an expert in innovation, culture, and organizational transformation. She helps organizations across different sectors, including the port sector, to building cultures that enable innovation and empower the people again. Hello, Iliriana. How are you? Very warm welcome. And let me start by thank you for joining this webinar and for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today.
Luis, Santiago, and João, muito obrigado. That's the most I can say in Portuguese for the time being. The pleasure is all mine to be here with you, and above all, to share with you an ounce of my passion about innovation. But as you already highlighted, I'm specifically curious and passionate about activating the innovators, the humans, the people, and then make the innovation happen across the organization. So I'm thrilled to be here, and besides sharing, I'm also very much looking forward to learn from you all, and from the insights that you may have to share, because I have prepared some questions for you as well. So stay tuned. I want this to be a conversation and exchange.
Thank you, Liliana. Before we begin your presentation, may I invite you to briefly introduce yourself to our audience, please?
With pleasure. So I launched the studio, Open Solve Studio, a bit more than a year ago with a very simple mission: to help leaders activate innovators, innovation, and innovation culture. I did this after a long career of driving innovation without having innovation on my title, and then supporting innovation by having innovation in my title. My utmost, like the foundations of my career, go back to the Kosovo, the country I am originally from. So yes, I'm a European. And by specifically working a lot to support the post-conflict reconstruction, because as you know, we had a very violent war during the 1999 and tough times in 90s. And then I also, in that capacity, I was in a very unique position to drive systemic changes in the society, and without knowing, activate innovators, specifically in government and civil society. Then I had the opportunity to join innovation, specifically from the open innovation perspective, while serving with companies here in US, and continuously help them build the ecosystems that they needed for that innovation to thrive. And luckily, I did have a short experience in the logistics industry, which covers slightly ports, by working with Tive and working on a very innovative solution called Open Visibility Network, which sought to bring together logistics startups, innovative startups with innovative visibility, especially real-time visibility solutions, to collaborate towards creating end-to-end visibility solutions. So this is like a brief introduction about me, and I'm again super thrilled and excited to be part of this conversation with you.
Thank you very much again. The floor is yours. We are looking forward to your insights. So let's begin.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Luis. So I want to, like, of course, we talk about innovation. We love innovation and all that stuff. But what I want to do today is, okay, I need to go to the first slide rather than 15th or whichever was it. But like, I've prepared a bit more comprehensive coverage. I want us to start by first understanding or refining our understanding of what we really all mean with innovation, how it happens, who drives it, why is it necessary, before we start diving into the innovation culture and empowering people to innovate. So for starters, yes, let's start with a very, very foundational. I want to learn from you. What do you guys mean with innovation? What is innovation? Okay, is this thing moving on your end? No, it's not. So I would love for each one of you to share in the message box of what do you mean with innovation? What is innovation for you? It can be one word, it can be two words, you name it.
Well, guys.
Yeah, people are typing. New. Obrigado, Gilvan. Change. Obrigado, Joao. Something new, Carla. Thank you. Future. You're going to love something that I'll share, Luis. Out of the box. I love this. Thank you guys for sharing. What you're highlighting, each of these framings that you have shared is highlighting a discomfort with status quo. We don't need, if we want to innovate, we have to get out of the status quo, out of the comfort zone, and get into the drive change, make something happen, think about the future, and not do what exactly we're doing now. So I want to share with you how did some thought leaders define innovation that really aligns what you already highlighted. So you may have heard of Clayton Christensen, the late professor from Harvard Business School. He is best known for framing the term of disruptive innovation. Clayton teaches us that innovation is a change, as Joao highlighted, but it's a change in the process in which the inputs of lower value are transformed into the outputs of higher value. What he highlights is that innovation is a process of transformation. Then we have Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs defines innovation as a ability to see change as an opportunity rather than a threat. I think, Joao, this will resonate with you specifically. What Steve Jobs highlights is that he reminds us that change is inevitable, and innovation is the way that we choose to respond to that change and do so with creativity rather than with fear. What I'm bringing forth to you is also the way that the definitions that MIT and McKinsey have defined, because each of them highlights something specific. According to MIT, the definition of innovation is that it is a process of taking an idea from inception to impact. What they emphasize that idea alone is not innovation, but it has to be carried through to a process that it creates value that is appreciated and provides some sort of transformation or change on those who it is dedicated for. And my last, one of my favorite definitions of innovation is the one shared by McKinsey. McKinsey Institute shares that innovation is the systemic practice of developing and marketing breakthrough products and services for adoption by customers. What I like about this definition is that it reminds us of the systemic practice. Innovation is not something that we do in isolation, but is rather a systemic practice and repetition of the values. One thing that I don't agree with McKinsey is the breakthrough, because innovation is not only breakthrough. Innovation can be incremental innovation as well. Because these two screens are not synchronizing. Thank you. Bear with me. So when innovations embark in innovation, it can be either incremental, disruptive, or radical or disruptive. So what do we mean with incremental? Incremental is about continuously improving what we already have. Think about it as evolution rather than a revolutionary solution. So for example, when we get a car model that is better in efficiency of engine every year, or for example, when we get the new phones that have better camera, more storage, and more capabilities, these are incremental improvements of products that we already use. These are really good examples, or like a good model to innovate, because for organizations that are very risk averse, incremental innovation allows them to lower the risk in innovation, and often easier to manage, because at the end of the day, you're trying to maintain or retain the customers that you already have. The radical innovation is when we make big leaps and when we try to create something new that can change a game. Think about like the space private flight that was triggered by the X Prize back in 2004, or like think about like the how the automobiles have evolved from horses, or the email from email. These radical innovations can be disruptive because they can also make some old solutions obsolete. But then the disruptive innovation per se, it means coming up with a product or service that starts in a niche market and eventually disrupts the incumbents. This usually come up with innovative technologies and very new business model approaches. So for example, Uber and Airbnb are always referred as very disruptive models, because both of these innovations came up with both technology and business model that radically disrupted the hotel and taxi industry. Mind that what is interesting, if you look throughout history, is that the radical and disruptive innovations are more likely to make history rather than the incremental innovations. Innovation, on the other hand, can be also closed or open or hybrid. So to innovate, businesses adopt one of these two major approaches. Closed innovation is the traditional model. That means that ideas are generated in-house, the experiments are totally developed in-house and in secrecy. The company relies totally on its internal research and development department and its own employees to solve. This is a model that has worked very well in the past when expertise was siloed or more isolated or less available in the market, and companies could afford to go long times with experimentation. Open innovation model, on the other hand, is the term that has been popularized by Henry Chesbrough, the professor from the University of Berkeley. He describes open innovation as purposeful flow of knowledge across the boundaries of an organization. In open innovation, organizations recognize that there's always more talent outside, with no matter how many scientists or subject matter experts they employ in-house, there are always more out there, because the knowledge is much wider available nowadays than it was in the past. So in such instances, open innovation model, companies intentionally choose to collaborate with outsiders. Could be the customers, could be universities, startups, sometimes even competitors or individuals across walks of life in order to innovate. So you guys are all in maritime industry. I'll remind you that the maritime industry owns a lot of its present-day development to an open innovation model, the prize competition from the 18th century for the Longitude Prize, which was awarded by the British King in order to support ships from not getting lost in the sea and delay the delivery of cargo. So what we see now with that, in addition to open innovation, companies then can combine either two. What means that they can choose to run a certain kinds of innovations inside in their own R&D, but then open up certain elements of innovation to through the open model and use those new external ideas to enhance the internal innovation. Procter & Gamble is very well known example of this because they both practice R&D their own and the connect and development platform of bringing in external innovation into the organization. So what we see here is that innovation at the end of the day is a process of solving real problems, doing so in a new ways that creates value and impact both operationally, commercially, socially, and economically. So I have, now that we know how innovation happens, the question comes, so who makes innovation happen then? Well, the good news is that it's no organization that has ever created innovation. People innovate, not companies. And this is a good reminder that I love referring to that was shared to us by Seth Godin, a best-selling author of business leadership and marketing. Wherever we go, it's people that innovate and not organizations. However, the organizations are the ones that make the innovation available to the public and the customers. So let's take a quick look down the history lane of how the innovation has happened through time. So innovation has always marked the human progress. Since ancient times, we have always tried to come up with innovative solutions to the problems. But during the first industrial revolution, we will see the rise of small entrepreneurs and the artisan guilds and small workshops. During the second industrial revolution, we see the establishment of the first R&D departments and innovation being driven at an organizational level. During the third industrial revolution, we witnessed the return to the individual and garage innovators. With the rapid adoption of computers and growing distribution of internet, the innovation is becoming decentralized, and now we see startups, those garage innovators, disrupting the incumbent and big businesses. So now we also have the AI coming in. And with all these, we need to recognize that the centrality of people to drive innovation is becoming accentuated. So the businesses, they need to be more agile nowadays to figure out how are they going to leverage the innovativeness of their people, of their individuals, in order to drive innovation, both from within and then later on even figure out how to bring expertise from the outside when ready. So you may wonder, like, why does this all matter? It matters because what we need to be aware of is that innovation is not a privilege of big companies anymore. It's been driven by individuals and small teams, and it's becoming centralized to the individuals. And then we have to recognize that every industrial revolution creates new opportunities for the new innovators with the new technologies and new opportunities that it brings. And now, more than ever, we can see that innovation can come from anywhere, anyone, anywhere, from within the organization and from the outside. So why is innovation necessary, you may ask? Can businesses just do business as usual? Well, there are very few industries where you can say that you can maintain relevance in the market by doing business as usual. Even then, you still need to innovate the processes. I have been fortunate to serve with different kinds of organizations, and wherever I've been, like, organizations needed innovation. Public institutions, they need innovative programs and policies to serve their constituents. Nonprofits and philanthropists, they need innovative programs and funding opportunities to support the beneficiaries that they aim to support. Corporations need innovative offerings to make sure that they don't get disrupted by the startups. And then even startups, besides having innovative products, they need to continuously innovate to make sure that neither they are being disrupted by the other startups that come into the market. So whether large or public, or whether for-profit or not-for-profit, innovation is critical for the long-term success of any organization. So why is in general then innovation okay, I have missed a disconcert of these two slides. So why do we need then the innovation? Because the world is changing. the world is not standing still. The customers of our institutions, of our organizations, they change because their behavior change. As technologies come, as they introduce new conveniences that make the new solutions more desirable than the old ones. As such, markets change, and then on both national and international level, it is different policies that do influence and redirect the way that our organizations or businesses need to continue to operate, namely the environmental policies to start with. So in addition, we have to remember that innovation is also good for the organizations. So McKinsey, for example, reports that companies that innovate, they tend to generate a 2.4 times higher growth rate than their competitors in the field. BCG reports that companies that innovate generate 3.6% higher total shareholder return than their peers. Then HBR, Harvard Business Review, informs us that companies that have innovative products, they score higher customer retention rate. And then other sources inform us that highly innovative companies report higher employee satisfaction. 89% of employees in highly innovative companies report satisfaction compared to only 25% in low innovation companies. So think about it, like you may know of Blockbuster. Blockbuster was, for example, a leading chain of video rentals in the United States with over 2,000 stores across the country. Blockbuster resisted to change and to adapt to the market changes, and as a result, it does not exist anymore. So Netflix was that disruptor that came into the market. They did address the frictions that Blockbuster did not, which was home delivery and no late fees, and created the conveniences that the customers preferred way much more than going to the Blockbuster store to return the video rentals. As they introduced the streaming, they literally drove Blockbuster out of business. It has filed for bankruptcy many, many moons ago. Then think about, many of us may still remember some of these products that you see on the screen: floppy disk, cassettes, rotary telephone, even iPod. These are all products that do not exist in our hands or in our consumption anymore because they are long gone. Their life cycle has ended because they have all been replaced by new technologies that have solved the frictions we've had with them and created the new conveniences for us as consumers. Ultimately, they've changed behavior, our consumer behavior. So when we ask why we need innovation, we have to remember innovation for organizations of any kind means staying relevant in the market. So we come to the question of why do ports need innovation? And I think this is the topic that gets us all excited today. Well, here's what I have to share about it, and I would love your perspectives as well. First of all, over 2/3 of the global GDP derives from the international trade. Over 80% of international trade traverses globe through containers. So ports definitely have a critical role to make sure that this trade happens because ports are an important transfer point. And then, in spite of the current challenges, the WTO economists recently published a report through which they foresee that in spite of the 0.2 forecast in the global trade contraction this year, there is an expected increase of 2.5% in 2026. So this means that the countries will continue to pursue trade towards improved economic development status and increased prosperity. So that's why, being businesses with customers and employees, ports need to innovate too, to continuously grow their throughput and revenues. To this end, ports need innovation for several reasons. First of all, ports need to stay competitive in global trade. Ports are no longer competing only at the national level, that they compete in global level to attract new shipping lines, new logistics firms, new freight forwarders. Innovation in operations, digital systems, customer service, they can all help ports to turn around, to reduce the turnaround time, to optimize resources and deliver much better value. So for example, ports of Rotterdam, Singapore, and Valencia are known for heavily investing in smart port infrastructure. Ports need to innovate in order to adapt to technological change. We know of emerging technologies, the AI, the IoT, the blockchain, the digital twins, the autonomous equipment. They are all transforming how businesses operate across industries, including in the ports. So when ports adopt these innovative technologies, they increase the efficiency of their operations and then can achieve more by doing less. Port of Antwerp, for example, uses AI to predict traffic congestion inside the port and improving the flow and gain competitive advantage. Ports also need innovation in order to develop and retain a future-ready workforce. Innovation matters for people. Innovation is driven by people and matters for people. So ports need to continuously upskill and reskill their workforce in order to make those, to shape automation and digitization roles. Fostering an innovation culture that ensures that employees are not only passive recipients of change and innovative solutions, but then they also become the active drivers of improvements and transformation. Ports that continuously innovate will always be better positioned to attract and retain new talent, and especially the talent that seeks to work in dynamic workplaces in which they can grow and prosper continuously professionally. Then ports need innovation in order to build and offer resilient and secure infrastructure. So Port of Sin is already well known about the new cybersecurity center and training programs. So you already know the importance of safe secure operations, because ports are continuously vulnerable to cyber attacks, the different impacts, and then geopolitical shocks. So innovation in risk modeling, cybersecurity, and even emergency response can help ports to build the resilience and continue to figure out ways to operate even in challenging times and times of different shock, like we've had, for example, the blockage of the Suez Canal. Then, lastly, the ports need to continuously innovate in order to improve operational efficiencies, because we continuously need to figure out how to do operations better. And last but not least, ports need to innovate in order to accelerate the transition to green operations. We already know that ports are major carbon emitters and resource consumers, and regulatory pressure that comes especially for the EU Green Deal is something that drives the adoption and creation and cultivation of innovative solutions within the ports in order to ensure both decarbonization and environmentally friendly operations. So as we can see from these examples, innovation in ports is not optional, but innovation in ports is necessary because it is the lever through which ports can stay competitive, sustainable, secure, human-centered, and ultimately relevant in the market. So whether through digital transformation, green infrastructure, workforce development, ports need to innovate to ensure that they will continue to be the relevant engines of international trade and prosperity for the countries that they operate in, the region, and the world in general, and especially make it possible for the 21st century that we are living in. So now we may want to explore, then what are the types of innovations that ports will need? Well, my understanding is that ports do need a very diverse set of innovations that are not only technological advancements or efficiency improvements. Let's unpack these one by one. But before I go on, now I would love to pass the baton to you. And because you are way much better experts than I am in port operations, I would love to quickly learn from you. What do you believe are some of the innovations that ports will need, or you foresee that ports will need either nowadays or in a very near future? Please share your thoughts in the chat box. Thank you, guys. Ships control, transit, bravo. Technology and shore power, yes. Oh my God, data governance, excellent. IoT, excellent. Technology, environment, organizational. There are tons of opportunities, excellent. Automatizations, yep. Thank you so much. You've touched already on the topics that I believe that ports need to innovate on. Let's unpack a few. There are a few that I believe are pre-docking, flyover inspections. Andre, you touched a very interesting topic. I was very surprised when I learned many, many months ago that only 2% of containers get inspected before released from the port. So that would be a very interesting solution. Maybe that's an innovation opportunity for you. So thank you for sharing. So let's unpack a few of these innovation opportunities that ports have. So, and I'd love to compliment. Bravo, Lucas. Yes. Yes, and we're getting to your topic, and I would love then to engage in a conversation with you once this presentation is done, because I just hope this is as a food for thought for all. So when ports innovate on their processes, which is, for me, it's the first one where we can even engage the workers and enhance the workers' capability to innovate, is that the ports focus to doing something that they already do, but do that much better. So that's improving the internal operational efficiencies. These are the types of innovation that have significant impact on reducing the bottlenecks, cutting the costs, and speeding up the cargo handling. Then there are another set of innovations. Of course, the technological innovation. Sometimes that's like nowadays, it's becoming easier to develop your small innovation technology yourself. Like I've seen people starting working on their own to develop different AI agents. But if not developing in-house, then ports do need to adopt technological innovation that is outside, because these are the ones that continue to enhance the port's performance in general. This encompasses automation, automated guided vehicles, leveraging AI for power predictive analytics, for traffic, for equipment maintenance, leveraging IoT, as Carla highlighted, be it for real-time asset tracking or for condition tracking of the assets, which is something I had a chance to work on, or maybe even leveraging blockchain to improve the supply chain transparency. So innovating or adopting innovative technologies can also have positive impact then on increasing the port's capacities, reducing errors, which remain in the logistic industry overall result of human input, and then enhancing transparency. For example, the Port of Singapore is becoming pretty well known for leveraging AI and robotics to streamline container handling. You may know the details of this one much more and much better than myself. So that there's another thing that ports can innovate on, and this one may not have been on your radar, and that is on service innovation. So ports can continuously introduce new value-added services to their customers and transform into comprehensive logistics hubs. So there are a number of ports in the world that have done so, and included, for example, cold chain management for perishable goods here in Wilmington, in North Carolina, handling oversized oversized cargo like in Zeebrugge in Belgium, or integrated logistics platform that provides warehousing and e-commerce fulfillment within the port zone, and this one is on LA Port. So by introducing innovative services, ports can become accelerators of economic growth rather than mere transit points, and then they can also unlock new revenue streams. And most importantly, when they add new services for their customers, they can positively impact the customer loyalty, which is important in business. And then lastly, you already touched upon this, ports need to innovate, ports need sustainability innovation. Ports need to continuously reduce the environmental impact of their operations and increase the long-term viability. This translates into innovative solutions that reduce emissions, reduce and eliminate waste, leverage alternative and renewable sources of energy for operations, protect surrounding communities, and ensure thriving environments for their employees to work and to grow. So when it comes to innovation in ports, then innovation for ports is not one thing. It is a portfolio of innovations that ports need to adopt. So to thrive and to continuously remain in the relevant in the market, ports must improve how they work, what they offer, how they collaborate, and how they care for people and the planet. So now you may be wondering who drives innovation in the port, right? So innovation in port has two layers. So I'm going to briefly touch upon the port ecosystem, because ports do work as an ecosystem. As an ecosystem, every member of that ecosystem does have a responsibility and the possibility and the potential to drive innovation, but in different capacities. So Port Authority is the one who's always going to be responsible to set the vision and for innovation, the direction, the guidance, and create some enabling environment. Shipping companies, logistics providers, they can always contribute to innovation by introducing new solutions that improve their efficiency. Vendors, especially those of technology and tools, can continuously innovate by upgrading their technologies. Then government and regulatory agencies can support the innovation by providing standards and sometimes even support programs that accelerate the innovation. Academia, on the other hand, can provide valuable research, knowledge, and can develop programs to support that continuous upskilling and reskilling of the workers at and not only at the port, but among all the employees of all the stakeholders within that ecosystem. But if you're curious to know who drives innovation within the Port Authority itself, then it's similar but a bit different. And that means that everybody, so what you see right now on this slide is a very simplified hierarchy of any organization. So the executive leadership, the middle management, and employees. The larger the organization is, the layers expand, but they can still be brought together for the simplicity of this learning experience to these three. So executive leadership will always be responsible to set that vision and ensure that innovation is prioritized and resourced within the organization. The middle management leaders are the ones that need to translate that strategic vision of the leadership into more actionable steps like programs or initiatives that will make that innovation happen down the road. And then employees are the ones who are most often invited to ideate and experiment, to observe frictions in the processes, and to sense what are the changes on the consumer behavior that do indicate the new emerging trends and can signal different changes that the organization must be aware of. When you take a look at this hierarchy, please pay attention to the middle management, because with no matter how many employees we want that are very driven to innovate, or the executive leadership does recommend innovation, if the middle management is not supported to act on this, then it is very difficult that it is going to happen. Why? Because middle management tends to act as a bottleneck, because middle management leaders are always the experts who are specialized to control the process, to ensure that an operation flows as it has been envisioned with the minimum amount of disruptions or excursions from that linear approach. So that's why the executive leadership needs to create space and incentivize the middle management to enable and create the time and space for their employees in order for that innovation activity to happen. But then once we have that vision set up in the top, then organizations altogether need to consider a few elements in which they can an innovation can happen, and that is like the elements of an enabling environment for innovation. So first of all, they need to create space that is free of fear for employees to experiment. Innovation is uncertain, and McKinsey informs us that there are 3 prevalent fears that hold people from innovation. Fear of judgment, of how am I going to be judged? How is my idea going to be judged if it does not succeed? Fear of uncertainty. What will happen if my idea doesn't work? What will happen? How many times do I have to iterate, and when it is going to work? And then the third one is always the negative impact on career. For people that very often the work is super important source of revenues, the negative career impact or the of a failed project can have a very big obstacle, can pose a big obstacle to having them engage in the innovation. Then in this environment, organizations, including ports, they need to create a space for open ideation for their employees. Instead of having ideas shared through small conversations and small interactions, they need to create space where employees can come with these ideas and share them in any time. So they need to empower and incentivize, as I mentioned earlier, both managers and the employees to engage in the innovation. Then they need to create comfort with failure. So nobody loves failure, but organizations that are very innovative, they have this comfort with failure because what it means is that they experiment and they learn and they leverage the new learnings to continuously refine their innovation attempts till they figure it out or they come up with a solution that meets their the goals and desired outcomes. Like very often when it comes to this one, we refer to the Thomas Edison's quote that through which he says that he has not failed, he has just discovered 10,000 ways of something not working. And then lastly, the larger an organization grows, there's more resistance to innovation, because if we start talking about an idea that we may have, we may start encountering like, well, no, it's not going to work for reason A, B, and C. So organizations that want to be innovative, they can encourage and they should encourage this yes and mindset, in which once an idea is shared by somebody, then it continuously gets built and evolved through the contributions of the others till it becomes an early stage solution that has been collectively innovated by many within the org. So obviously, to activate innovation and innovation culture, we need to engage all 3 layers of the hierarchy. And then above all, my little bias is always about creating the space to activate the employee innovations. And there's also one little reminder that we learned from Professor Rita McGrath about this one. She says that snow melts from the edges. And what she means with this metaphor is that employees, the boots on the ground, like the dock workers in the ports, they are always going to be the first ones to notice the shifts and potential issues arising that may create new innovation opportunities. They are always the ones who best understand the operational bottlenecks and the customer pain points, and they notice the early signals of the incoming inflection points, while the leaders may be too late to notice them. And then this is where that opportunity for capacity building comes, for workforce development comes, which we mentioned in the very beginning. At times, people may come and say like, hey, I would like to activate innovators in my space, but I don't think whether they have the right capabilities. Well, first of all, my answer to comments like that is that you never know what is all the talent that you have already hidden within the organization, because people have different talents, hobbies, curiosities, and passions that are not always visible at their workplace. But for when organizations believe that they need to support this, they can enhance the innovation activation by providing new opportunities for people to learn new skills, acquire new knowledges, and provide them with the space to practice those new learnings at the very workplace. So for organizations that are only thinking or are at the very early stage of activating innovation, what I always recommend are like very few basic skills to enhance. We already agree, and we mentioned that we need digital literacy, but one other skill that I highly recommend is the skill of design thinking and as a problem solving. Design thinking is a very valuable method because it allows us to dive a bit deeper into the real causes of the problem, understand the people for whom we are trying to solve, and based on that very deep empathy, understand what are those people trying to accomplish and achieve, so that we can create the solution that is definitely going to be supporting their welfare or them accomplishing the goals that they're aspiring. So then the other skill that I always recommend is communication skills. When people start innovating, very often they come across the difficulty or the challenge for the others to buy into their idea. So improving the communication skills, the storytelling skills will enable them to convey the opportunities for this innovation much more easily, secure the buy-in that is needed for the leadership, and then along the way also mobilize the allies and the partners and the collaborators from the other segments of the organizations. And lastly, is change management. The change management comes handy when we need to support the execution or the implementation of the solution that has been innovated in the place. So whether that's about deploying it within the organization or outside, having a foundational understanding of how to manage the change and the acceptance can take these innovators a long way. So as we see, there is a role for anyone to drive innovation within the organization. And now what we also got together here for is to understand how can ports cultivate the innovation culture. And before we go, I want to ask you something again. Can you please let me know, in your setting, in your culture, what do you mean with the word culture? What is culture to you? Carlos, they say that great minds think alike. Values. Bravo, Gilvan. Culture is identity. It is shared value. It is behavior. It is a common belief. It's a common practice among group of people, common language, common symbols, customs, tradition. Exactly. And if we take this into innovation culture, what would innovation culture mean to you? Attitude to problem solving. I love this, Andre. Openness. Excellent. I would love to learn afterwards, Gilvan, how difficult it is to create this open space to accept new ways of doing, and we can share this for the discussion afterwards. Same, Carlos, out of the box. I would love to hear more from you about this. Excellent. So here's how I define innovation culture, and you'll find different definitions. Bravo, creativity and diversity. Absolutely, Carla, absolutely. So innovation culture is a shared value, a shared set of beliefs, of behaviors, of practices that systematically, not one time, systematically support the creation, experimentation, and adoption of novel ideas that deliver value and impact. So it's not just about creating space for ideas. It's about creating that enabling environment for people to solve new problems with new tools and new solutions. So for an organization to cultivate innovation culture, including the ports, they must consider what does it take to create a shared system of beliefs, shared behaviors, shared practices among first people within the port authority, but then later on among the everybody and all the stakeholders within the port's ecosystem. And to do so, we realize that innovation culture is not something that we wake up to. It is something that we gradually create, we can practice and endorse over time. And organizations with advanced innovation culture, they do create a safe space for anyone to ideate. In these spaces, people are not judged for bad ideas. There is no such thing as a bad idea. These organizations do encourage experimentation and do not judge or penalize people for failed experiments. They rather celebrate and learning from lessons that, and they don't call failure a failure, but it's what they refer to it as experiment-based learning, and they capture those valuable learnings from each experimentation and use them to refine continuously the solution that they're working on. Then they recognize that their offerings need to continuously improve. Along the lines, they provide their innovators, both especially the internal ones, with tools, resources, and incentives. Andre, innovation does lead risk. Innovation is risky, and everybody resists innovation. Resists risk. However, when you establish a process, you do manage that risk. And I'm going to share some of the examples of how we can manage risk, or how we can reduce risk in the innovation process. So I'm going to share now with you some examples from the world. These are non-port, non-maritime industry, but are very valuable for you to consider and be aware of as you pursue, hopefully, opportunities to drive innovation within the port of Sine and other ports of Portugal. One of my favorites of all time is the TD Bank's Ideate program. TD Bank is one of the largest banks in North America. And in 2019, by mere coincidence or by mere initiative of few individuals, they launched the Ideate program, which is the bank's internal program to crowdsource ideas from all employees. And as they call this, to crowdsource small innovation, because in original it is a small I letter, which means that they cultivate this challenge-based innovation program to continuously refine their existing product or create incremental innovations within the organization. So the TD Bank has has about 96,000 employees and already has over 10,000 innovators, internal innovators in their innovators community. So far, they have collected over 100,000 ideas since the inception of the program. About 10% of these ideas have been implemented, and TD bankers have been named inventors in over 1,600 patents that have been filed since 2019. So this is one example. Here's another example of how companies create a space for their people to innovate. So Cisco has this annual Innovate Everywhere challenge, which they launched back in 2015 to embed innovation across the entire company. This is annual call to all 74,000 Cisco full-time employees to team up, disrupt, and innovate. They launched this initiative with a very clear thinking in their mind, and that is better disrupt ourselves than have somebody else do it for us. The ultimate goal of Cisco's Innovate Everywhere challenge is to capture disruptive venture ideas from employees and then help them scale. Their employee engagement metrics are very impressive. They have engaged over 49% of the workforce, 36,000 and over almost 37,000 participants from 89 countries. More than 1,100 teams and individuals have submitted venture ideas, and in this first run, they had generated over 769 innovative venture ideas. The incentive that they provided to the teams was $25,000 in prize money and seed money to move their venture forward. That's impressive. That's not enough. There's another one. So does anybody of you use Post-it notes? I do. My entire wall is full of Post-it notes. I have to thank my convenience and my love of Post-it notes to 3M's 15% rule. This is a very well-known program of the 3M, the global company, launched way back in 1950s to empower employees to innovate by allowing them to dedicate 15% of their paid working time to pursue passion projects, new ideas, and innovate experiments outside of their regular jobs and responsibility. The ultimate purpose of the 3M's 15% rule is to encourage individual initiative, to think creatively, take calculated risks, and pursue ideas that they believe could benefit the company or the world. This program has led to some of the 3M's most iconic innovations, the Post-it notes, as I mentioned, but then also Scotch Guard, which is a breakthrough in stain resistance, and a lot of other numerous advances because they continue to innovate to this day, on and on. Then another program that I want to bring to your attention is Adobe's Big Kickbox, which has now already been spin off into its own foundation, independent organization. In 2013, Adobe launched a Kickbox to democratize innovation. What they've done is they provided employees with a red box, which had $1,000 of prepaid card to fund ideas, step-by-step innovation playbook, creative tools, chocolate included, and Starbucks cards for coffee, and notebooks and the like. So the impact of this one has been that 10% of employees have participated, about 1,400. 23 ideas have been funded, including Adobe Know-How and Project Breathe. And in 2015, this, as I mentioned, this project has been open sourced and now is available to a lot of companies across the globe. So you may wonder, like, is there anything that the ports can do to replicate these practices? Well, my recommendation is that yes, they can do, and they can start something small. Small hackathons, very periodic, could be a great starting point, but mind you have to figure out what do you do with the solutions that have been sourced through the hackathon. Ideation campaigns as well, innovation challenges, bit more focused, and then once that practice gets embedded and refined, the ports can establish their own innovation labs. And now I'm going to take my bias for innovation challenges to share with you why innovation challenges could be very valuable for ports and any other organization that aspires to activate innovation and innovators. So innovation challenges are open, structured, time, and purposeful incentive mechanism that motivates people to be within or outside the boundaries of the organization to ideate or create novel solutions to an identified and well-defined problem that is recognized within the organization, ecosystem, market, or society at large. So innovation challenges activate innovators to solve. They generate innovative solutions that have not been tried before. And then through repetition, they can cultivate the organization's repeatable innovation process that will feed the innovation culture that the organization needs to thrive. So what innovations bring together are few core elements. They bring the problem, which they identify as innovation opportunity, employees as innovators, and problem recognition that it needs to be turned into a problem solution. Specifically, innovation challenges structure this process by presenting people to problem to solve, inspiring and incentivizing people to innovate, providing a structured process to collect and evaluate the best ideas and innovation submissions, and then to prize and recognize, to offer the prizes that recognize and reward the innovators that have participated in the process. Another reason that why I love innovation challenges is that altogether they create a safe space and fear-free space for employees to innovate and to experiment. When companies or organizations launch internal innovation challenges, same as the TD Bank has done, for example, or the approach that other organizations do, it's the leadership that communicates to the employees the credibility on their capabilities to solve the yet unsolved problem. They do not isolate innovation to a certain unit within the organization, but they open it up to everybody to come up with the ideas, regardless of their ranking in the hierarchy in the organization. Then innovation challenges provide this open space where ideas out of the box can come from everybody in the organization. What they also do is they provide incentives. So very often, as we saw in the Cisco provides $25,000 of a prize. Kickbox of the Adobe provides $1,000. Different organizations provide in-kind incentives to support their innovators. It's what it is, incentive that is presented in the challenge appeals to the people's intrinsic and extrinsic motivations to engage and makes and drives them further to solve with the organization. Incentives can be both financial and non-financial recognition, could be career progression, could be also at the time to develop the idea into a full-fledged product. Then, as I mentioned, they do provide the structure, and this is very important because very often we may hear of organizations like, hey, we have an idea box, people do share ideas, but we do nothing with that. When you call for ideas through an innovation challenge, you provide that structure to collect the ideas, to review, you provide the criteria based on which those submissions are going to be evaluated. You inform the participants who are going to be the judges to evaluate their submissions, and then once the innovation, the winning solution has been identified, you continue to inform what has happened with that solution in order to inspire more of the innovators in the future to engage with the challenges like this one, like the one that you might have launched. And then the other thing that innovation challenges do provide is the opportunity to practice new skills and to solve problems presented through the challenge. So what can happen, and what I have done in my practice, is that when I recognize that there were insufficient skills or knowledges for people that I wanted to engage in innovation to solve for the problem that we wanted them to solve, we could integrate different capacity building, training, educational programs to equip them with the skills that they really needed before they can go on and solve the problem that was presented to them through the challenge. What this does is that it engages learning and problem solving, combines them into two, so makes each of one purpose of the other. And mind that as adults, we learn by doing way much faster than through other methods of learning. So combining learning experiences with the innovation challenges is an excellent match of the two. And then as such, then innovation challenges do have this triple impact for the organizations, because besides simply generating ideas, they activate those dormant innovators in the organization. They activate innovations to be created within the organization before the organizations can go and explore those solutions outside. And then ultimately, they act when they are repeated regularly and periodically, they create that set of shared beliefs, the norm, that openness to ideate, to create new ways of doing things, and to the courage that if you try something new, if you do something new, it is not going to be judged, but it is going to be appreciated, recognized, and valued, if nothing at all, at least as a learning experience. So over time, then the practice, if a port has been running innovation challenges, then it can turn this into a more formalized innovation operation, could be virtual or physical hub, as we mentioned earlier, innovation lab, and it can open up innovation challenges to every member of the ecosystem, the port ecosystem, to engage in solving more complex challenges and simultaneously incentivize cross-system collaborations and co-creations. So as we can see, ports, it's not that they can cultivate, but they can do a lot to activate and to cultivate innovation culture by simply launching periodic innovation challenges and start so doing small. So you may wonder, like, but then can we measure this and how we can know that we are making progress? That's a normal question that we all want to be aware of. And the answer is yes, of course. When you run your first innovation challenge, you establish your first baseline indicators, and the ports can do those. Running the challenges within the port, and then later on even within this ecosystem. You can always take a look first at the number of the ideas that, a number of employees that have engaged in sharing ideas, number of ideas that have been submitted. You can monitor number of the training programs that have been offered, number of graduates of those training programs, and number of the graduates who have engaged in the challenge. Then you can move on to start measuring the quality of the ideas, because every challenge needs to present the evaluation score to the judges to select the idea, so you can see how do these average scores evolve through the time. Then you can measure on the speed of implementation. How long does it take to bring to life an idea that has been presented in the innovation challenge, or to turn it into a pilot, into a proof of concept, or a minimum viable product. And then down the road, what you definitely want to start measuring is the business impact. What are the efficiencies that new innovations are creating? What are the costs that they are creating? What are the new added values, say like new improvements that are being recorded by the port and the ecosystem that have not been there previously? And ultimately, you can through time start measuring this cultural shift, the level of how people feel to innovate, to come up with the new ideas, share and work and develop them, but then also how does leadership feel about the innovation and how their perception shifts. Thank you for your patience. And then beside the quantitative indicators, you can always look into the qualitative stories and qualitative anecdotal qualitative indicators. You can start capturing different anecdotal evidences of cross-department or cross-ecosystem collaboration. Already mentioned how do perceptions of the leadership change through time because of the innovation practice. And then you want to celebrate the stories and capture the stories of the solvers, of what they have to say and how do they feel about the work and the innovation that is taking place, or the users of the new solutions that have been generated through innovation challenges. So Clearly, ports can and should monitor both qualitative and quantitative innovation indicators in order to measure their own progress in the innovation field. And now we know that ports are an ecosystem. So the question falls like, how can we make sure that ports can do this within the ecosystem itself? The simplest is like, you just move beyond the gates. Then once you have mastered that innovation challenge process within the port, you can the ports can open up the challenges to everybody in the ecosystem, to the employees, everybody of every organization in the ecosystem, can foster collaboration among the members to develop new agile or cutting edge solutions, to continuously deepen the collaboration with the academic research to drive the generation of both incremental and breakthrough innovations, and ultimately to launch different kinds of acceleration programs to commercialize the solutions. So the solutions that have been created within the port or within the ecosystem to find new opportunities or new markets or new industries. Ultimately, innovation is not a luxury. Innovation is a strategic imperative for every organization, including for the ports. Everybody has a role to play in driving innovation culture, making it happen, and sustaining that culture. The executive leaders, the middle management, the employees, the ecosystem partners, everybody can play a role. So I hope that this presentation of mine has already inspired you to start identifying what is one problem that you already know of within the port or the port ecosystem that could benefit from an open innovation challenge in order to spur the workforce development, new capabilities among the workers, and generation of genuine solutions and innovative solutions within the port. I thank you very much for your attentions and your patience, and I'm really looking forward to learn from you about more about the innovation at the port.
Thank you so much, Iliriana. This is very inspiring and insightful presentation. You have given us a lot of things to think about and a very clear perspective on how innovation culture can be developed in our port communities. Thank you again for sharing your experience and vision with us today. And let's start. We now are open to the floor for the questions and comments. So I believe we already have one.
Yeah, I don't see any of the questions. So if you see any, can you please read it for me? Or if people feel comfortable to come forth and ask the question directly, I'd be more than happy.
Okay.
Whatever works for you.
You can activate the sound for them. Yeah.
If not, if the QA does not work, then I can see the questions in the chat box. So
I can open the sounds. I don't know. Let me see.
It's here. I will put it. Gilvan made a question. I will put it here in the chat, if he doesn't mind.
Sure. Gilvan, sorry for pronouncing your name incorrectly. So considering innovations are made by people, not by companies, but companies are built by people and companies' culture are imposed by people, what are the bare resistances for acceptance to innovations proposed by people? So as I mentioned very often, there are three fears that prevent a lot of people from innovation, individuals, and that's even the leaders. It's the risk of how this idea is going to be judged. We don't love to be judged. We love to be celebrated. We love to be acknowledged. We love to be respected. And it takes time for these ideas sometimes to evolve into valuable solutions for few to be appreciated. Then people as I mentioned, the managers, especially who are not incentivized to drive innovation, they need to focus to deliver the KPIs that have been promised to the leadership. So it is very difficult sometimes for them to create the understanding that, hey, innovation is necessary if they do not have the support and sponsorship from the top. On the other hand, very often companies believe that innovation is expensive. Innovation can be expensive, but it does not have to start expensive. When you run innovation challenges like the ones that I shared with you, for example, examples from different companies, you can start the ideation with very small funds, or sometimes even no funds, just to tap into the creativity of the people. And for those, you don't need big funds, especially when it comes to operational enhancement, operational efficiency improvements. I had a chance to conduct a small research last year that I called Hidden Innovators. And this was for example, and I learned a lot. And for example, I talked to somebody in Chile who was a CEO who was appointed by the advisory board to run a moving company, a family-run moving business. So when this guy came to the organization, his name is Alvaro, he wanted the board's approval to do something about innovation and introduce innovation challenge in the organization. The board did approve, but they did not want to approve him any funds. So what he did, he went to the national authorities, something like Economic Development Agency in Chile. He found a grant, got a grant, applied and got, and then they came back to the organization and launched the challenge. Through that challenge, like some of the ideas that came in the organization, he said, like, they were so simple but so valuable. For example, one of those solutions was to color code the boxes per rooms, so then when the cargo is moved to the address, the movement and the process of organizing the goods around the house is way much faster than it would have been otherwise. And then some of the ideas that came from the movers themselves was to synchronize and develop a calendar that improved and increased the capacity to manage more customers. So sometimes to create that comfort with ideation, you need to start with very small examples, very small instances of how you cultivate ideas, how you give space for those ideas to be tested before you can turn them into a longer or like more expensive investment, or like more resource demanding investment to turn that solution into something bigger. So I hope I've answered your question. Okay, so we have another question from Leandra. What practical steps can leaders take to dismantle the cultural barriers to innovation? So Leandra, if it's the leaders, the simplest that they can do is just create a space where the ideas can be shared. They can do even as an unstructured way, just for the starters. But you can add a structure to that, or you can add a purpose to that. Say, for example, you want a box of ideas for efficiency improvements from the employees. Then if you don't review those ideas and recognize and celebrate those contributions, then you are not going to dismantle that barrier. But if you take that ideas, or at least one, like every quarter, we are going to review the ideas box. We are going to figure out which is the one that is best aligned with our business strategy for this year and try it out. You are going to gradually introduce those to dismantle those barriers. Or another way could be like, why don't we have an innovation day? One of the ports in Portugal has had an innovation day, but don't do it only once. Do it more often, maybe twice a year, or maybe more often, to see what do people come across. Because what you need to do is you want to structure this, and as I shared with the innovation challenge, you want to present a very clear problem and give the space to everybody in the organization to come up with their idea of how they might solve it and what they would do. So that's how you you start gradually to create the space that people need to feel freer, that coming up with new solutions is not going to be judged, but it is appreciated, it will be brought together. And in a more advanced practice, when you see that these type of practices are taking root, then the leaders should work with the HR department, with the finance department, with the HR to carve that specific time that is needed to make within the working hours of the employees, to carve space in the performance evaluation about innovation, and then with the finance department to carve the budget that will be allocated every year to employee ideas and ideation, both structured and unstructured. Leandra, have I answered your question, my dear? Okay. Louis is asking, what key skills should port leaders prioritize to build innovation capabilities? Problem solving. Louis, that's my first answer. And problem solving can be different kinds, but for me, based on my experience, is really different design thinking, because design thinking, as I highlighted earlier, builds the empathy. Mind that whatever we see as a problem is always just the tip of the iceberg. Maritime industry knows it best. What we see on the tip is not the entire problem. So we need to dig deeper with different research methods to understand what is really causing that problem, create the empathy for people who experience that problem. Could be the customers, could be people in the organization, could be partners or collaborators in the ecosystem, and then start figuring out how to build innovation capabilities. So design thinking, to summarize, design thinking to identify and deeply understand the problem. Then what you want to do is you need a bit of systems thinking, because what design thinking allows you to solve the problem and create the prototype for a specific problem. But the systems thinking can help you understand where in the system that problem resides, and when you solve for that problem, how can it help create a positive impact outside of that space. And then if you're talking about capabilities, and especially about the workforce capabilities, then you want to make sure that you provide different kinds of trainings and learning opportunities, a lot of on-the-job learning experience, to make sure that you support your workers to continuously improve their performance, to continuously grow professionally, and to stay in line with the changing environment that we all operate in. My personal motto is that life is an eternal classroom. We don't stop learning when we graduate whichever school. And as the world is changing nowadays, with more of AI becoming part of our life, I think it's becoming even more important for us to learn and understand how this technology works, how we can use it to create value, and make sure that it does not replace us. So even like I said, why organizations need to innovate, I very often refer that what sold and created value yesterday does not sell and create value today. What sells and creates value today won't do that tomorrow. And this is happening with our own individual skills. So we have to think both individually and for the others, how we continuously improve our own skills and our own individual capabilities. So the next question is how much will that cost? Given that some innovations have an indirect or long-term impact, how can it be motivated without a direct quantification? You cannot because...
This is not mine, it's from Andre. I put here, so it's Andre question.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Andre. The best way to learn how much will it cost is to start developing it, and you start developing a very low cost, low fidelity prototype to see what you may need in order to solve it, and then you can see like where else we are going to develop something. Like what you're talking right now, you're just reminding me, like I talked recently to somebody who has developed a solution to scan textiles and determine the fabrics in the textiles that can help faster sorting of the wasted textiles. So it cost this team $5,000 to create the prototype and to build the next iterations by simply sourcing off-the-shelf solutions that are available. So that's what they needed to come up with the solution, that first prototype. But they know that if they want to commercialize and scale the production, then they will need more funding to turn it into for manufacturing. Gilvan, considering your investigation researches, do you have an average time for innovation challenges processes to be implemented in a medium industrial company? Great question, Gilvan. It really depends on the complexity of the problem. So for some internal efficiency improvements, you can run a challenge that could be like not 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It really depends on how much time you think the people will need to put aside in order to create that level of the readiness or maturity of the solution. But if you want to do a breakthrough innovation like the X Prize does, for example, then you need to create and provide innovators with multiple years to develop it before you can so they can raise funds, which they do through the X Prize engagement, develop the prototypes, test it, and then generate the results that are communicated through the challenge. But again, my recommendation is start with the small, start with super small. Like sometimes I even, in a joking way, I tell people, why don't you suggest everybody come up with an idea of how might we improve the all hands meeting? Sometimes all hands meeting cannot be that exciting because somebody is talking like me this time and everybody else is listening. But is there any way that we can have all hands meetings that can be more engaging and more interactive? If you throw a challenge like this to people in an organization, you may need 2-3 weeks for ideas to come up before you can start testing out and selecting which one needs to be tested or rewarded for the best solution. So it really depends on the complexity of problem. The more complex the problem that needs to be solved, the more resources that you need, the more expertise that the problem needs, then you want to provide more time for the challenge. So how are we doing with time?
The limits, but if you want to answer one more, perhaps.
Oh, wait. Now I see there's another one. Luis, your question is, how can ports effectively integrate cultural considerations into its innovation strategies, ensuring that innovations are not technologically sound, but also socially and culturally appropriate? This is a very profound question. But what the first thought that I had when you mentioned the cultural considerations is the diversity of people, because every port has a diverse group of people that work. Some things that are valuable for the dock workers or for equipment operators might not necessarily be of the same value for the leaders and the management. So integrating these cultural considerations into the innovation strategies, what I would suggest is that you set the criteria. When you set the innovation, when you adopt the innovation strategy, you decide what are the types of innovations that you want to pursue. And then you also ensure what are the social impact indicators that you will want to make sure that whatever innovation is created is going to adhere to. And without the adherence to those criteria, socially, culturally, environmentally appropriate, you do not give green light to those ideas to move further, or you send them back for a refinement before they can be processed into a next stage of innovation. And then Gilvan has another question. Innovation acculturation process begins. One of the first questions that usually arises is the need to create an innovation department, in my view. This is the same as maintaining a culture of islands of excellence or castles of powers within the organization. What is my perspective on this? Maria, hi, Maria. I'm so glad that you have joined us. Great question. My take, as I mentioned earlier, it starts small, because an innovation culture and a solid innovation operation requires more than just an idea, but it requires acceptance within the organization. Innovation, in my view, is not a responsibility just of a department. Organizations that decide to have innovation department, in my view, they can best be positioned to support the others to innovate. And what I've seen through my research and what I've come to believe is that innovation is a skill that can be added to any expertise that we have, because innovation skills are the ones that are helping us to identify the problems and create new solutions where they did not exist. So for me, what I always like, from my perspective, what I recommend is start with innovation challenges that can be led by different managers from different departments or functions in the organizations. Run few challenges before you decide to take them a bit high. Why? Because with every challenge that you run, you can first right away take a look at what worked, what did not work. And then when you design the next challenge, you can integrate better those elements that made it work, and you can eliminate the ones that did not work. And as you repeat this 3-4 times, then you will gradually cultivate your own repeatable innovation process. Once you have that, you are already ready to appoint people into that innovation department, assign it a mandate to cultivate, to drive and advocate innovation within the organization, and then allocate annual budgets so that program can deliver on the organization. And as you see this happening, then you can elevate that to make innovation a very robust element of the business strategy overall, because then you can continuously refine how the innovation strategy aligns with the business strategy and supports the business growth and remaining relevance in the future.
I believe we finish. Thank you for all the excellent questions and for this very rich discussion. Iliriana, thank you very much for this inspiring talk and for sharing such valuable insights. And thanks for all of you for joining us today and contributing to this dialogue. We look forward to see you in the next upcoming NTalks sessions. In the next week, we will have another one. So be sure you come again. I believe, Iliriana, we will speak very soon again. We are inspiring to the Innovation Challenger, I believe. So for me, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Thiago, I don't know if you want to say something.
Yeah, just to thank you, Iliriana, once again for your talk and for your time. I think we have here the beginning of a very profound. I know that you have already talked with several of our students. So yeah, we will be welcoming you again in future sessions, and hope to see you here once you come to Europe. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, both Luis, Thiago, Joao earlier, and to everybody who joined today. The pleasure is absolute mine. Thank you so much for your curiosity. And I know that questions are never ending, and please feel free to reach out and share your questions. You'll all find me on LinkedIn. I live there digitally, so I'll be more than happy to continue to answer your questions and support you in your way as you continue to support the Port of Sines and the other ports in Portugal to become more innovative.
Okay.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.